perceive, comprehend, confound, soothsay, foretell. These 5 words of power are used to describe the clan of the moon, the Malkavians, or do they actually? I am your Lord and Saviour, and this is the Bloody Guide to Vampire Roleplay. The Malkavians are descendants of the vampiric antediluvian Malkav, a seer embraced by either Zillar or Enoch, though you may hear him described as a descendant of Lilith, or even an angel. What is known is that he is one of the oldest third-generation Cainites who has ascended the planes of mortal realms and exists as the infamous Madness Network, blessing and cursing his children with maddening prophetic sights of the past, future, and everything else in between. His clan Malkavian, are thus a mysterious and deeply troubled group of vampires. They have taken on the roles of visionaries and prophets among their kind and humans alike, eerie figures who are controlled by strange forces and possess the ability to perceive things that others cannot. They are also infamous for their pranks, ranging from petty and harmless to maliciously cruel. Despite their reputation amongst the kindred as the Mad Bunch, one of the oldest vampire clans still survive to this day. They were also instrumental in establishing the powerful Camarilla and are known as one of its pillars in the modern times. There is a lot to unpack here, as is the case of anyone with any amount of trauma, but the Malkavians are amongst the most traumatized of vampires within the world of darkness. Malkav was a seer, but he knew this. It was the blood of Cain, a curse from Cain or a message from Lilith that shattered his mind, but he was not a murdered individual prior to this. He gave visions and advice to his brethren of the blood. The infamous madness of the Malkavians would come so much later. When his mind broke, his descendants would feel it forevermore. But the mortals the Malkavians embrace are not those with poor taste who would describe as raving lunatics. Sure, there are those amongst the clan who fit the description, but a mad clan the Malkavians are not, despite the conflicting messages found in the metaplot of Vampire the Masquerade, particularly 5th edition, the very focus of this guide and series. The Cassandras in Mortal Life do not discriminate who they embrace, but they do focus on intellect, as that would be needed to dissect visions aplenty, but it also gives them a firm footing in the Camarilla, already having some degree of influence, so it makes the concepts rather large. Another factor connecting them is that most have some sort of hard luck tale or dark secret that the sire is aware of, something they, sire and child, can work towards or exploit. In other words, they are disturbed in some sense, often without a lot of self-esteem, though the inverse can be true. Whilst it is not always the case, people with trauma can have high emotional intelligence and empathy, many of whom want to understand the truth about themselves, which makes them their own self-imposed detective and psychologist. Degeneration of the mind is guaranteed when a Malkavian embraces, so someone with lots of mental fortitude and lots to give before becoming one of the Nord, non-functional Malkavians, unfit for kindred society. The embrace for most is traumatic. Dying, coming back to life, realizing you have lost it all and will be at the bottom for a very, very long time. The Malkavians endure this and then are flooded with visions only they can see. Sometimes it won't be places and people, but sensations and smells, vibes and feelings that they barely understand themselves, let alone any way they choose to part said information. Why should they? The Malkavian possess all the answers but none of the questions, one day but a completely different set tomorrow. That in of itself is maddening, both for the vampire themselves and anyone who witnesses any mental breakdowns the Malkavian has from the visions, on top of the existence of being a vampire and on top of any mental illnesses that spread like a cancer since the embrace. Once the Malkavians were valued for their oracle abilities, but with the rise of Christianity, such powers are not only satanic, but a sign of weakness and madness. True visions come from God, the big G himself. Science replaced faith with reason. You can't be sure it will work, the math doesn't add up. In other words, you're a weirdo, and society shuns anything with the width of individuality, mocking alternate solutions that aren't immediately understood. The Malkavians are a pillar of the Camarilla, but one when it suits the prince or council member. The rest of the time, they are the joke clan, the lowest of the low clans, just about able to be the performing monkey of Elysium. Now, many Malkavians become bitter and resentful, understandably so. Their hand is forced to join the Anarchs, unchained by the Tower, hence the 5th edition title for the Anarch-aligned Malkavians, Unchained Malkavians. However, such a title is a double-edged sword. An unchained Malkavian is a stereotypical lunatic, free to use dementation and spread the madness they were discouraged to in the Camarilla, with many Anarch kindred once belonging to the Sabbat, so take that how you will. The other side of things is the more obvious answer, and that is that they are free from the stigma of the Tower, but alas, similar distasteful songs are sung about the Malkavians within the movement. The hot-tempered and trigger-happy Anarchs need answers, not riddles, and morose Malkavians with visions is not what they need. They need action. The emotional well-being of the Malkavians may be so dire that they simply lack the will or spoons to take up arms and fight, but if they do, the disciplines makes them an interesting asset to subvert and madden the opposition, which makes the Unchained Malkavians, at best, tolerable. Is it really any wonder why the Malkavians are perceived as mad? Supernatural visions feed into mortal thoughts and understanding, morphing the brain into an unfixable mess. Some respond by creating herds that are more loyal than any other for a sense of belonging and leadership. It's common in the VTM fiction to have Malkavians run or stalk hospitals and mental clinics, and whilst part of that is very much a stereotypical spooky vibe, it provides some comfort knowing there are others who experience snippets that you endure. At the same time, it doesn't help there are others you cannot fix, people who will not be listened. Despite the progress, mental health is still a taboo subject in many places. Women are called liars, children are told not to cry, and men are told to man up. We are taught to suppress our feelings, but when we snap, it's the victim's fault. Society is not the guilty party, but the judge, jury, and occasionally executioner. It should be no surprise that, as a response or sheer desperation, others seek comfort from their own, or comfort from themselves alone, but the latter is the little lie. It's shutting themselves away, hiding from the world, unable to face all that scares and overwhelms them. The perceived madness of the Malkavians does not define them, but it does shape them. The never-ending visions provide a new context to view the world, but it does not take up the whole existence. I am more than my own traumas and mental illnesses, as are you. What you do and don't do, how you feel and don't feel, and the fragmenting memories of yesteryear define your personality, and how others view you speaks volumes of your character. People embrace people, and the Malkavians are, at the end of the night, people. The Malkavians possess the disciplines Auspex, Dominate, and Obfuscate. Auspex is the all-seeing, all-knowing, and all-trauma-dumping power that makes them the go-to plot device for the ST. Jokes aside, the Malkavian vision manifests through its various powers, and how the character employs them defines the character. Do they rely on Auspex to make them feel important and relevant, helping those in need or service? Or is this something that is viewed with a more passive touch? Do the sights that come on their own accord help or hinder you? If so, how much? Obfuscate will make sense for any recluse that wishes to be ignored, to be deceived when they really feel comfortable with it. On a mechanical level, they deceive the mind, the illusionists before the Ravnos was conceptualized. And of course, they are some of those who use their abilities to pull off fun pranks, silently observe court dynamics, and slip a knife into someone's back. Then there is Dominate, originally taught by the Venture and Tremere when forced to give up dementation, for it was too much of a Masquerade violation, and it just isn't proper. Another mind-altering power that forces one to bend the knee or forget as much or as little as the horrors you put someone through, or the consenting party of something troubling that just occurred. more troubled souls would use it to cause mayhem. To that end, whilst the Great Prank is not mentioned in 5th edition metaplot, dementation is present via an amalgam. Narratively speaking, it implies some are closer to Malkav and his network than others, their minds potentially more broken if we're to be crass about it. It may also imply an allegiance, as the Sabbat and, to an extent, Anarch Malkavians are more likely to wield it than Camarilla kindred. These powers can be embraced fully or rejected, but remember not to trivialize mental health. No one likes a fish milk. With this wide range of functions, there are many ways you can bend predator types to fit your kindred concepts, but here is what I would suggest. Bagger and Sandman offer safe routes for Malkavians wishing for that hospital-themed feed, though Sandman is not exclusive for that fitting. They are both considered more moral choices too, fit for the more traumatized individual. Farmer and Bloodleech offer similar mindsets, though the latter again offers more danger. Nicer still is the consensualist that, as the name implies, asks for permission, which any herd, cult member or patient may oblige to. So would too be family, via Cleaver or Scene Queen, from a select subculture where you feel safe and let your hair down. If feeding on the mentally and physically ill is not your cup of tea, nor are you fond of sipping off blood bags, a twist I may recommend is Grave Robber. With that, you get voices and sounds from beyond the grave, as well as in the mangled consciousness of lunatics, to use the nickname for them. On the flip side, if you want to embrace the idea of choosing the nearly dead and dying, Grim Reaper may be the choice for you too. What all these offer is discreet approaches to best suit the discipline spread, but experiment with it and have fun. There are many lore sheets you can assign to your character, but here are some of the ones I think fit well with tonight's clan. A pillar of the Camarilla such as yourself may have information regarding the Convention of Thorns, while someone from the Anarchs that is interested in people and blood distribution may know a thing or two about the circulatory system, both of which comes from the core book. Perhaps you wish to have some connection to the infamous Vorman sisters via their lore sheet, or run one of their clubs, or perhaps you wish to be a descendant of another Malkavian, for Stanacenia, one of the first Malkavian anti-tribute. Just because she was part of the Sword of Cain doesn't mean that you are, not even a little bit. There are also 3 other Malkavian exclusive lore sheets that you may wish to consider. Starfall Ranch from Children of the Blood, Malkavian Family from Chicago Folios, and of course, the Cobweb, otherwise known as the Madness Network, the lore sheet in question coming from Chicago by Night. A Malkavian player wanting a sense of found family in their game may want to pull a heretical turn on things via the many cult-related lore sheets from the Onyx Path Publishing sourcebooks. There are many ways one can build a character. Some of them are wrong, but most of them are right. Ultimately, it should be the narrative that drives the stats, powers, and mechanics that work with and against them. These are just my takes, however, and mine alone. How would you build a character belonging to this vampire clan? What wouldn't you do? What would you add to shake things up and make that concept just a little bit spicy? Let me know in the comments below. To be kept updated, follow the Lore by Night VTM Instagram and Blue Sky pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, and you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.